So differences between preferred and non-preferred kick legs were found. We found that the non-preferred foot exhibited slower foot and ball speeds and less force was applied to the ball. Although interestingly, the ratios weren't significantly different. So foot speed in to ball speed out, or the ability to transfer energy, didn't differ between legs. We've also found differences between senior and junior players. Once again, lower foot speeds, lower ball speeds for the juniors. Considerably less force applied to the ball by juniors. They only get around sort of 700 newtons compared to over 1,000 by players. That's on average. One very important one is they've got greater plantar flexion. So basically what happens is the toe is extended. So through impact, sorry, I can't get that going again. So through impact, as they kick the ball, their toe gets forced into plantar flexion more so than the senior players, even with good kicks they get. So they're absorbing some of the energy back up into their body. So based on this, we've recommended this as part of the coaching recommendations we were developing. Foot speed is something we need to develop in juniors, and also developing more force, being able to apply more force to the ball. Foot speed and force were correlated, 0.61, but not all the variance explained once again, so there is some independence between those two. So not all those ones are going to work, apologies. That one did, that's good. Moving to rugby league, we had a look at different rugby league kicks, specifically drop kicks, grubbers, bomb, goal kicks as well. But I wanted to have a look at how impact characteristics looked for rugby league kicks compared to AFL. We also did this with rugby union. What we found was quite interesting, that there's more work done on the ball compared to AFL. There's less time in contact, and it is a slightly lighter ball, so that's probably contributing. So for the same force application, get a greater acceleration off the boot. But there were differences between different kick types, enough so to warrant that a real shift in terms of the training that we were doing at that stage. We were concentrating on one sort of kick. We shifted it on to doing a lot of different kicks to make sure we tapped in on all these subtle differences that existed between the rugby league kicks. So our future work with impact, we're going to extend it to 3D with Hero. It's an important next step. He's done this work in soccer. We need to do this with a punt kick. We need to figure out what happens to these large forces. Is there an injury link? Since doing a lot of work with footwear, tying that into this work as well will be beneficial, and definitely combining the kinematic data with impact data to get a complete picture of what's happening is important. So that's our distance work and that's our impact work. The third strong area of focus is preferred and non-preferred leg kicking. It's important to be able to kick with either leg. In a lot of sports, they need to do it. In AFL, it's essential. In Gaelic football, it's essential. And in rugby league and rugby union, it's starting to develop as both a surprise tactic, but also as a means to get out of trouble, making it more difficult for defenders. We did a lot of work on this with one of the rugby league teams I was working with, because of defences were setting up very well to stop our kicking game. So by adding the other dimension of non-preferred foot kick, we could disrupt that defensive play. So what are the differences, and can they be trained, is obviously the questions. In our first study, we had a look at 8 elite AFL players. They kicked maximal and sub-maximal kicks with both legs, three-dimensional analysis. The first bit that we examined was just the knee. So in the figure here, apologies if that is too small to look at, we've got two lines. The navy blue line, the dark line, is the preferred leg. The pinkish line is the non-preferred leg. On this axis, it's knee angular velocity from toe off all the way around to ball contact. And on this one, it's knee angle. It's called a phase plane diagram, and it's a way we look at coordination profiles of different parts of the body. And what you can see is they're both very similar in shape. So from a coordination point of view, they were very similarly coordinated. There was much the same movement pattern. However, there was a scaling factor. This pink line fits well within the blue lines, indicating that both range of motion was smaller and also speed was less. So greater speed and greater range of motion was exhibited by the preferred leg at the knee. It did surprise me a little bit as a kicking coach, because we can get some very uncoordinated non-preferred foot kickers. I reckon coordination was definitely going to be a factor at the knee. So next phase, let's move up. We moved up a notch, up a level. Included the hip and the pelvis into this analysis. So the hip flexion extension, adduction abduction, pelvic tilt, pelvic long axis rotation. Very interestingly, we found the same differences, that range of motion differed and speeds differed again. But it was a very different overall pattern. So the preferred leg produced significantly larger knee angular velocity at ball contact and a significantly larger pelvis range of motion from toe off to ball contact. The non-preferred leg actually produced more hip range of motion and greater hip angular velocity at ball contact. So very different areas of control, different ways they were doing it. So this is a slightly different coordination, if you like, graph. Knee angle, hip angle. So angle graph rather than an angular velocity graph. But the same, you can sort of take away the same sort of message, that similar shapes equal similar coordination, different shapes equals different coordination. So if you look at this one, we can see the knee, the blue one is the preferred leg, so it's longer here and further out here, indicating the greater range of motion at the knee. But the red one, the non-preferred, is higher and lower than the blue, indicating the greater range of motion of the hip angle. So you can see a lot more stuff done at the hip compared to the knee. I won't expand that to the pelvis, but the pelvic motion was significantly related to kick leg velocity in the preferred leg as well. So 3 possible reasons for this. It was a very interesting finding. So it's potentially locking degrees of freedom. Sorry, I don't need that one. On the non-preferred leg, so for the less skilled leg, if you like, rather than trying to control pelvis, hip, knee, the major centre of control was the hip. So locking the degrees of freedom, aligning it with Bernstein's theory of the same. And certainly that could be the reason for why players are producing this movement. It could also indicate poorer intersegmental coordination. They're not able to transfer the energy developed down the line. Some contention with that one overall as a theory, but certainly that's a potential reason. It could also relate to the ball drop. We talked about the ball drop right at the start. By keeping your control at the hip, you allow for a lateral adjustment of the foot to catch a bad ball drop. As I said before, ball drop is one of the major sources of error. So on the non-preferred hand, you can drop the ball in a number of different spots and you're not quite sure where it's going to go. So by keeping the control at the hip, maybe they're sort of hedging their bets a little bit and enabling themselves to grab a bad drop. So we're exploring those 3 more as we go. We extended this work to juniors. So we looked at 50, 10 and 11-year-olds. Went back to 2D on this one because it was we were down at the local park. We looked at maximal preferred and non-preferred leg kicks. Very interestingly, exactly the same patterning occurred. We had range of motion and angular velocity at the hip and knee differed exactly the same way as the seniors did. So hip angular velocity, blue is the preferred leg, red's the non-preferred leg. Greater hip angular velocity at ball contact for the non-preferred leg. Greater knee angular velocity for the preferred leg at ball contact over the non-preferred. And with range of motion, same deal. Greater knee range of motion for the preferred leg. Greater hip range of motion for the non-preferred leg. So it looks like patterns are established very early in the piece. It was quite interesting that it happens that quickly and that early. So further work we're doing with the non-preferred leg, looking at different coordination measures and also that coordination development in juniors. When does it start? Is it there straight away? Do we need to intervene earlier if we're to get them more similar in terms of their two legs? Just very briefly to wrap up, a couple of other current studies we're doing, looking at eye movement work with Derek Panchuk, who's in the audience somewhere. As a colleague, he also presented yesterday on his eye movement work. We're looking at fabrics to train these technique changes giving feedback to the players in various forms, immediately using these smart fabrics. And we're also, as I said before, exploring more coordination measures with John Wheat in Sheffield Hallam. So to wrap up, so what do we know from all these studies? Well, we know that there's technical factors associated with distance kicking, faster foot speed, faster shank angular velocity, optimising the ball drop position, and a longer last step can improve your distance. A knee and a thigh strategy seems to exist. As far as the support leg goes, a more extended knee is important, and better braking is important in generating foot speed. Impact's very forceful, and differences exist between juniors and seniors, and also between preferred and non-preferred foot legs. Different strategy between the preferred and non-preferred leg kicking, and this strategy seems to be established very early. Thank you.